Howdy. I'm getting better at that. I'm really excited. We are absolutely delighted to be here. This is an extraordinary university, and I think this is a wonderful time in the history of this university. It's on a great trajectory. I think we're on the cusp of a lot of changes in public higher education. Been going on for some time. I think this university has, in so many different ways, all the pieces in place to really be the leader of that kind of change in a very positive way. I'm tremendously impressed with the kind of research that goes on here. As you look at work that's being done here, it really focuses on what some of the great global challenges are. Food security, safety of food supply, plant-animal human connection and welfare, sources of energy and energy supply, marine environment, and the list goes on and on. But it is those things that I think are in such a profound way affecting the world, and this university is the leader in thinking about and addressing and researching and working on those. And you add to that one of the most extraordinary student bodies I've ever met, a student body that's not only smart and talented and ambitious and engaged, but also that is very self-conscious about weaving into their educational experience a set of values that help them use that education that they get on behalf of others and on behalf of the world. And that makes this a very special place. So we really are honored to be here, very pleased. The welcome has been tremendously warm, and we are excited to get started. So with that, we'd be happy to take any questions or discuss anything you would like to talk about. I think they're terrific. I mean, I think there is a real need for that kind of technical competence across the world. I mean, if you look at the way in which technology of all sorts has transformed our lives, it really is in many ways engineers who are at the forefront of doing that. And again, almost all those areas I talked about, the issue of engineering is absolutely critical and central to that. I would say it's nice it's done in the context of a university, though, because this is important. Engineering provides a remarkably broad technical capability, but it always has to be paired with those other kinds of things that we think about. What is the effect of these technological things on our social, our political, our ethical, and our moral lives? And we are strong in those areas as well. And so that balance between that really significant kind of technical, imaginative, innovative expertise coupled with that thinking about how these things transform the world and what those transformations mean is important. And this university brings both of those to the table. So as we expand engineering, we're going to make sure that we also have strong complements of all these other disciplines that matter so much as well. Well, you know, that's a great question. I think the traditions are really important, and I think they're important because they do a number of things. One is they kind of connect this university generationally, and that's enormously powerful. They help transmit those values in a way that are really meaningful, and I don't think those change very much. Whatever changes we're going to see at Texas A&M over the years, keeping a really strong focus on what the core issues are, the core competencies, the core missions, and those core values is going to be really important. You know, I do think we have to make sure that not everything is a tradition. There's a difference between a tradition and a practice. And there will be changes, but I think in the things that really have served in the way that traditions do, to do that intergenerational connection, to communicate those values, to ensure that we sort of keep a focus on the things that really matter. I think those will really continue. But there will be other changes, and I think they'll be exciting. And I think as long as we keep that balance right, we really will have a focus that will be productive and exciting and effective, I think. And I will remind people, you know, people could say, well, you're the keeper of the traditions, and that's not really right. going to participate enthusiastically in the traditions, but the Aggie land and the Aggies all over the world are the keepers of the tradition, and they're going to help educate us and help us understand and make sure we know which ones are really important and vital to the university, and we will honor and respect those. I would say, and I've said this before, and it's, believe me, not hyperbole, it's the warmest welcome I think I've ever had anywhere to anything, I think is fair to say. Would you agree with that?
Well, it certainly has been for me.
It's as enthusiastic, and as I say, the enthusiasm for this university, which is part of the reason we're here, is unexcelled, and that's been very nice. I'll tell you, for non-Aggies, it's been interesting. The most common reaction has been congratulations. I mean, I was at a great university before and so forth. Nevertheless, virtually everyone who has said anything about it to me has offered congratulations, because they know this university has kind of a special place in the world, and they recognize that. And so I think that's been the essence. And then, as it turns out, a surprising number of people know how to run the university, and they've not been shy about sharing that with me as well. Well, I appreciate the chancellor's sentiment in that regard. I didn't ask him to do that, as I think he has said, but I have no intentions, I think my past experience will reflect, of coming in and doing a bloodletting. I mean, we will look to work to organize the senior leadership team in a way that best serves the university, I think. Every president has a somewhat different leadership style, to be sure, and a different way of operating. We'll figure out how to best organize it as we move ahead, and whatever changes are necessary will be made, but certainly there isn't going to be any sort of dramatic changes in the short run. Well, I think the two issues you always really have to keep deeply in mind when you're thinking about that. One is affordability. I think it is important that we work as hard as we can to make this available, both in reality, but also as a matter of perception. I mean, I think in fact this is a remarkably affordable university. We have to make sure people continue to understand that, and understand the resources, the financial aid, the Pell Grants, all the other ways in which that can support. And sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle a little bit, that people see these increases in tuition and they get worried that they can't afford it. We need to help people understand that despite everything that's happened over the past decade, still is remarkably affordable. Need to understand a couple of other things too, which is the return on investment is spectacular. I think students coming out of here get the second highest salaries in the SEC, of all the different SEC schools. Washington Monthly continues to put Texas A&M in the top 5 in terms of return on investment for the students. And on the flip side, the administrative costs here are stunningly low. As someone who's been at other universities, 3.7% of your total expenditure on administrative costs is, I mean, it's certainly the lowest in Texas, probably the lowest in the SEC, maybe the lowest in the nation. It is amazingly low, and we will continue to work to squeeze out all we can out of the administrative side to ensure we put as much as we can in the instructional part. The flip side is, though, the value of this education is critical to these students, and we have to keep that value proposition high. All of the statistics I cited don't matter if, in fact, we hollow out the quality of this university. These kids deserve the best education that can possibly be given, and we need to make sure we generate the resources. Our hope is that we can, as mentioned earlier, see a lot of the transformations occurring in higher education. Think of other streams of revenue. I mean, historically, it's been sort of state funding and tuition. I think that model is not complete anymore. And so lots of other streams of revenue need to be sort of seriously considered to help defray these costs, to keep tuition and keep it as affordable as possible, and yet provide that quality that is absolutely essential. And so that balances, I think, where we will work very hard with the legislature, with the Board of Regents, with the students, and with our supporters around the country. You know, I really haven't. I've been focusing on a lot of, excuse me, a lot of other things at this point, but certainly something that we'll begin to look at as I assume the presidency. You know, again, it's one of those issues I haven't looked at very carefully. I'm new to the state of Texas, new to the issue of these rivalries, their history and their patterns. And also, both I am new and the university is relatively new to its new conference, the SEC. So I think questions of scheduling football teams is something that's going to take a lot more analysis, and certainly nothing that I'm going to get out ahead of our athletic director and our coach on thinking about. But I have not had conversations with them about any of these concerns. I mean, it's always a balancing act to try and get your football schedule right, and how that plays into an opportunity to play the University of Texas is something that obviously is going to bear some consideration and study, but I don't know enough about it to really have an opinion. Well, I spent about 6 or 8 hours at the chancellor's office at the system level yesterday. So, if everybody's patient, I'll sort of recite everything I learned during that 6 hours. I think some of the areas in which we're going to want to look sooner rather than later really has to do with how we support the faculty with respect to research. This university's moved into the top 20 in the nation in terms of research funding. That's very exciting. I think we will have opportunities to think a lot about how we support that. How do we ensure that there's availability of interdisciplinary opportunities, which is something that's absolutely critical as you think about where the cutting edge of research is in so many different ways. And then what are the complementary areas in which we need to bolster the research arm of the university? For example, big data analytics is absolutely critical across a very broad range of disciplines. We have some very good equipment here that could put us very much in the driver's seat on that work, and that work cuts across an enormous range of disciplines, everything from astronomy to behavioral economics and so forth. We probably have not staffed ourselves fully yet in a way that allows us to take advantage of that. So things like that, I think, where we figure out where are the opportunities to ensure that the resources available to really deepen and expand the research arm of the university will require early attention, I think. And then related to that is how do we ensure that as we expand and deepen those research opportunities, we also find ways to ensure that students have a very robust opportunity to participate in that research. I mean, one of the things that a university like this can offer to students is assurance that when they walk across campus, they can have a truly transformative intellectual experience. And there are lots of ways to do that. Certainly it happens in the classroom sometimes, it happens even in student organizations, it happens sometimes in study abroad, service learning classes and so forth. But it also happens in a really profound and powerful way with research opportunities for students. So how do we make sure that we have, as we expand and deepen the research, that we also are assuring that there are very robust and significant opportunities for students to participate in meaningful ways in that. So I think those are some of the things that we'll be thinking about early on. Well, I think we'll be pretty accessible. I mean, I think we have a reputation for being pretty accessible and certainly being pretty collaborative, and I hope to be able to spend a lot of time with students and with faculty as well as with community members. I think that's important. I will stress that it's also important, though, that at the end of the day, the biggest contribution I make to the students' education is not always because I'm hanging out with the students, as much as I like to do that and as many as I get to know, but it's also ensuring that at every stage we are organizing the university with the students in mind as the most important part of it, and that everything we're doing is making that degree more valuable than it was last year. And so accessibility will certainly be balanced with assurances that I'm providing the kind of leadership that helps the university deepen, extend, broaden, and enhance that student experience in every way imaginable. I'm just one person, but I've got a great faculty out there. I want every student not only to get to know me, which would be great, but I want them to get to know their faculty member. I want them to get to know a mentor. I want them to have that kind of personal experience for all 62,000 of them. Well, I think you'll find we'll be pretty accessible and available and around on campus pretty much all the time. I would hope that from 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night to 6 in the morning you left the president alone. I hope you'll leave me alone. But otherwise I think you'll find us pretty accessible.
I think that we should know that we are definitely working with our team to make sure that we have avenues of personal in-reach to the students. And we don't know what those are going to be yet, but they will probably be uniquely President Young. And I hope that the things that we do choose to do reflect the kind of leader that he is and the kind of trust he intends to build. So stay tuned for that.
Well, the very first thing I did, which is, I hope, a reflection of my appreciation for the students, is we met with we gave an interview to the student newspaper, and unlike what I'll do with everybody else, I gave them my cell phone number. And then this is now the second event. So, and actually, let me step back a step from that and just say, it's not entirely accidental. I think this is a great university. We want people to know what kind of university it is. We want the taxpayers to know how effectively and efficiently their funds are being used and what a difference it makes in this state and indeed in the nation and the world. So we do hope to be accessible to the media, and hope that you will take occasion to really get in touch with us as you're doing stories. The only thing I ever ask out of the media is fairness, is that you know, we will make mistakes, to be sure. By and large, we're not stupid and we're not venal. There's often a reason we do things, and just let us tell our side of the story. You can tell the other side for sure, but tell our side of the story. But we do want to be accessible. We do want people to know what's going on here. Somebody once said about me, I'm hardly capable of discretion, much less secrecy. So we hope to be very transparent about what we're doing, and we will be delighted to share that with all of you as much as you would like us to share it with you. And I hope that relationship continues. Well, one area I know we will focus a lot on is how we think about enhancing the impact of the work that goes on at the university. And it takes a number of different forms, but I'll give you one example. Both at the University of Utah and at the University of Washington, one way in which we were able to take some of the great developments that occurred in the research labs out into the real world was through the commercialization process. Not the only way, but at the end of the day, there are some things that are much more likely to really get out in the lives of real people and be useful and change their lives if at the end of the day you have a kind of a pathway for commercialization. And we were happily pretty successful at that at Utah. I think for a few of the years we actually led the nation in the number of startup companies and so forth. Washington, we did some of the same things, and by the time we were done, Washington had more licenses than any other university in the country, and had more active technology under license, and I think it was about third in terms of the number of startup companies. And again, the focus is not on making money. The focus is on doing good, on taking the work that goes on and trying to have a positive impact with it. And commercialization is not the only way by a long shot, but it is one way in which you really can move the needle. And I think we'll probably do some focus on that. I think some of the international work that I've been privileged to be part of at those two universities would be something that I think we have a very strong international basis here, and I think that's critical for our students. I mean, borders really are largely irrelevant. Our kids will be working in a world in which they just don't matter. Borders don't matter very much. And I think we'll have a lot of focus on how we expand international, interdisciplinary work and expanding and creating more modalities for that, and a budget process that really facilitates that will be something I think we'll be looking a lot at as well. I had some success at those universities doing that.
Presenters today, thank you so much.
The first to last question is always the hardest.
Do you have any more ties like that?
I have lots of maroon ties now.
I was looking forward to those.